Today's interview is with Alan Pierce, the CEO of Ansuz Magni Investments, an investment company focused on finding, assessing, and investing in opportunities within Indonesia. We asked Alan, "What's your favorite book and why? Business and non-business if possible." He told us, "For business, I really couldn't narrow it down as I read quite a broad variety of different business subjects. Each new business book I read is usually specific to what I'm currently working on and kind of becomes my new favorite book of the week or month. I like to apply anything I learn directly onto the project I'm developing." The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This book is very helpful and an insightful book that I like to refer to back when my schedule or commitments get too rushed or chaotic. Sometimes we have to step back, reprioritize and refocus to stay effective and proactive rather than falling into the trap of becoming just reactive. This is a great book for that purpose. For nonfiction, I read many different categories across the board. Anything from history, historical fiction, fantasy, spy novels, science fiction to personal growth books. Here are a few books that have been especially meaningful for me. Chicken Soup for the Soul. A feel-good book that is great to read when sometimes we get too busy and lose sight of the truly important things in life, like family, children, close friends, health, and the basic living necessities, things that we should always be thankful for. Taipan. This novel is the second book in a great saga detailing the intense competition between 2 shipping magnates and their battle over the gateway to China, the very lucrative island of Hong Kong. Set in the tumultuous period during which the British had seized Hong Kong before it was known as England's crown jewel, it is an exciting and fun ride detailing Hong Kong as a melting pot of political and economic interests with no shortage of intrigue. It's a must-read for sure. Lord of the Emperors. A historical fantasy set in a Byzantine world where the Eastern Roman Empire is on the verge of a war with the Ostrogothic Kingdom of Italy from the point of view of a commissioned mosaicistic artist. Fantastic story and very interesting historically, as the author defined tremendous research for this book. We asked Alan, "Was there a moment specifically when something you read in a book helped you? Can you tell us about it?" He replied, "Getting to yes." The underlying premise of the book is that keeping flexible mind and making a real effort to understand someone's underlying motivations as well as what they are trying to accomplish. This baseline will help you to find common ground in difficult negotiations and create mutually beneficial and long-lasting agreements. The best agreements, from my experience, are the ones where both parties find great value in the agreement and it is built on solid and transparent fundamentals. This book has also helped me in creating mutually beneficial partnerships with partners and investors in my company, ABM Investments. During the reading of Getting to Yes, I was managing operations on a remote island and one of my workers was shot with a bow and arrow and stabbed with a spear. We all could have been injured or killed as we were stuck on an island with no way out, but I sat with the local leader and both men involved and negotiated a peaceful truce. In large part due to the principles in Getting to Yes, we managed to avoid a war with hundreds of villagers. My 100-man team was only at 20 at that point, as many had gone home between projects. It would not have ended well for us, so thankfully we made it out peacefully. We asked Alan, "What books had the greatest impact on you, perhaps changed the way you see things or dramatically changed your career path?" Alan replied, "Think and Grow Rich. This book dramatically changed the way I structured my day-to-day life. Based on over 2 decades of personal interviews and studies of home history's greatest minds, the author distills the lessons he learned and details how you can train and condition your mind through daily habit to master your actions. The way it promotes a disciplined and holistic approach of continual self-improvement, goal-setting, and strategic decision-making really resonated with me." We then asked Alan, "What books would you recommend to youngsters interested in your professional path and why?" He replied, "There's a few answers to that question as I have had a few career paths. I started out with a career in art for 20 years and then shifted my focus to my other 2 great passions, construction and business. I'll give you some of my favorites for all 3. For business, I would have to say The E-Myth. This book is a great read for anybody interested in getting into business because it lays out in a very practical and clear fashion what to do and what not to do in order to make your business predictable and repeatable. The Everything Store, Jeff Bezos and the Age of Amazon. This was an amazing glimpse into one of the most disruptive companies in history, as well as the past and future trajectory of e-commerce and retail. It is also a testament to unwavering self-belief. The thing that impressed me most is that Jeff Bezos intentionally built an entire department dedicated to making his primary business obsolete, which allowed him to take the lead in the next development, ebooks. His foresight is extraordinary, and he is a great inspirational big thinker. For construction, that's a hard one, because I love so many elements of modern and traditional building construction, but also because in the different regions I have built in, the building technique has varied quite a bit depending on the history of the location and the materials most readily available at the time of building. You'll have to take my book recommendations with a grain of salt, as they don't fully encapsulate all the building materials in every region of the world. But that being said, the 4 below would be a great foundational start for anyone wanting to become a residential or small commercial general contractor. International Residential Code 2018. This is a great book for overall understanding of primarily modern Western building and the many different building styles and materials employed. A Timber Framer's Workshop. This book is fantastic for teaching the old world and increasingly rare joinery techniques for framing. These techniques were used for houses that lasted for hundreds of years, far longer than many of the modern Western homes of today. Graphic Guide to Frame Construction. This book has it all when it comes to modern-era wood framing and is a fantastic guide for anyone who wants to get into construction or engineering. Fundamentals of Sustainable Dwellings. Green building is the future, and this book is a great way to understand the fundamentals of energy-efficient design, green power, air quality, thermal comfort, water management, daylighting, and a host of other subjects. For art, I would say buy books that give an insight into the artists that you admire and enjoy the most, and also buy books that allow you to expand your fundamental understanding of the 7 elements of art: line, shape, space, value, form, texture, and color. The most difficult subject matters to master, in my opinion, are the human figure, our natural environment, and color theory. Any books on these subjects can help you develop the skills you need to transition into whatever style or art genre you are most passionate about or need to work for. Some of my biggest influencers are Michelangelo, Bernini, Rembrandt, Georges de la Torre, Caravaggio, Salvador Dali. We also asked Alan, "We're interested in finding out more about your reading habits. How often do you read and in what format?" He told us, "I spend 30 to 45 minutes 4-5 days a week early in the morning, while it's still quiet and everyone is still sleeping. I love collecting physical books, but nowadays I almost always buy ebooks to save time and space." We asked Alan, "How do you make time for reading?" He told us, "I read voraciously my whole life, everything I could get my hands on until about 8 years ago. I got so caught up in the day-to-day of managing my business that I didn't make time. Over time, I realized that the mind is like a muscle. If you don't give it nutrients and force it to grow and be uncomfortable, it begins to grow weaker. About 3 years ago, I decided to carve out time almost every day, at the very minimum 30 minutes, 4 to 5 days a week." We asked Alan, "Do you take notes or have any other technique for conquering the torrent of information?" He told us, "I like to read in short, impactful sessions to absorb the information better. If I read for longer than an hour, I start to lose focus on the content. Often, I'll read about what I'm currently working on, so that every time I learn something that applies directly or change my thinking in any way, I'll immediately make a note of it. I find that if information has a direct and practical use, it sticks in my mind better. I have to stay away from fiction a little bit these days, because once I get started, I'll read until early in the morning and pay for it the next day. My wife says every time I read, I get some sort of epiphany. I do think she sometimes wonders if you're supposed to have that many." We asked Alan, "How do you choose what books to read next?" He told us, "I have a flexible annual calendar for book reading that I loosely follow. If something comes up that really intrigues me, I'll just slide it into my schedule. I'm a big believer in history repeating itself, so I enjoy studying history books, looking for patterns, and also just learning about the world in general. I come from a family of travelers, readers, and writers, so we are all curious about other cultures and countries. In this era, as we all become global citizens, it's crucial for us to understand different cultures and historical context to better interact and understand people from different backgrounds and regions. When I'm deciding what to read, I usually always have in the back of my mind advice from my lifelong martial arts teacher, Priyatin Viratna. Never allow your skill to outstrip your creativity, and never allow your creativity to outstrip your skill. They must both be equal to achieve true balance. There are books more geared for increasing specific skills and industry knowledge, and there are books geared for general knowledge, history, and fantasy. When you relax and really free your mind from order and just enjoy a good story, your imagination and creativity will start to flow. I tend to mix the two to disrupt the brain from getting stuck in the same thinking patterns. Over the past couple years, I've been reading more history than usual, specifically regarding Venice, Italy, as its rise as a maritime power in the 1500s as a research for a passion project that I co-wrote, titled The Mysteries of Venice, the Renaissance of Stone, Terrazzo, Brick and Glass, and is a fun coffee book full of pictures with a light mixture of history, construction, engineering, and architecture, exploring the past, present, and future usages of stone, brick, and glass. I'm crossing my fingers we'll get it completed and published in the near future. We asked Alan, do you prioritize the books recommended by certain people? Is there anyone that you consider a book recommendations guru? He told us, yes, Azam Tenku is my dear friend and my go-to for good or unique business books. He is also a Bitcoin expert and author of Bitcoin, the Digital Gold Rush, which is also a very well-written fundamental breakdown on the origins of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. As a last question, we asked Alan, what book are you currently reading and what are you expecting to gain from it? He told us, I'm currently reading In the Plex, How Google Thinks, Works and Shapes Our Future, and I'm excited on gaining more insight into how Google is changing the world and hopefully to get some valuable understanding I can use to maximize business decisions and read future trends while assessing investment opportunities for my company, ABM Investments. This was our interview with Alan Pierce. If you want to find out more about him and his projects, follow his website at quarry.abm.investments. You can find all the books mentioned in this interview in the video description. The CEOlibrary.com is a daily updated library of book recommendations and interviews from the business people we look up to. Thank you.